Hello, this is Matt Molen. I'm here at the freaking at the ZBrush booth. What are we, 5? 50? Screw it. Anyways, Matt Molen here, sculpting, ZBrush booth. I'm a concept artist, senior concept artist and sculptor over at Sideshow. And today, I'm actually doing some personal work. I'm working on the cellophane here. So the cellophane goes way back to when I was in the military. There was this thing called the Aftermath, a comic me and my brother made. And basically he is one of the deities of this thing called Walden. And it's basically a theme park based society that became like the Roman Empire and started taking over places like, you know, like here, San Diego, LA, and started subjugating us to their weird Walden ways. So, got my own custom UI going on, got some hotkeys, and basically I just made this a couple days ago. So I'm gonna go with that. First thing I'm gonna do is smooth everything out, because the one thing, I don't know about you guys, but I find hard is if I detail something like this, or not detail, but if I start doing this, I find details in here. Sometimes it's helpful, but a lot of times it should be ignored, because all of a sudden you're using Damien's standard, and that thing's starting to create some weird rivets in it and starts changing the whole thing. You need to erase that until you got the basic form first and work from there. So basically, let me bring up some images.
Oh, it's still there? No one's doing that.
So this is an illustration I did. This is the cellophane, as you can see. So basically what I did is just lined it up like this. You know, and usually the way I line this stuff up is with the eyes. And I'll move the eyes so they're not exactly symmetrical, obviously asymmetrical. Symmetrical. And work around that, kind of put the hands where they should be, and work the rest of this. It's pretty much that easy. So, that's what I'm going to work on. Here's from the back cover of our comic. You can actually get this on Amazon. You can see the cellophane right there. It's hanging out back there. That's the Walden logo. You can hardly see it because it's blown out. Smile, live long day. $25, Matt Molen Brothers. Anyways, I'm plugging all types of stuff. So, let me go back a little bit more and show you some of the work I've done so far. So I'm a senior concept artist, so I work with 2D and 3D. So this is a couple of my 2D works. This is obviously traditional in pencil. This is a little bit of pencil and Photoshop, pencil and Photoshop, pencil and Photoshop. Here's another character from the Aftermath series that I did. His name's Silence, because he's a train head and he doesn't talk. Then we got this weird frog mama, these little tadpole babies on her back. So far. So the one I recently did was at Monster Palooza, and I worked it in ZBrush, 3D printed on a Form 2, printed it out, brought it to Casey Love, who also works at Sideshow, and it's an amazing artist. He painted this for me and made it absolutely beautiful and pop. And can't think enough of that. Actually, before I start sculpting the cellophane, I'd like to show you how I generated the God of Halloween. Let me load that up actually. So here it is. It's a whole lot of file. But yeah, so basically, when I was going through, here it is. So you can see the whole lineup of how the idea started for this IP character. At the starting, it was basically this guy. I wanted to do this just weird pumpkin guy, like he basically smashed it over his head, and me and my brother were actually talking about that concept a long time ago. So I started sculpting something like that, and it's like as if the pumpkin itself infects the person and you become the god of Halloween. So there's like almost a cult, and this goes into like making your own IP. Is like when you're designing this, you're coming up with, hopefully you're coming up with a story that kind of based around what the sculpt is or what you're doing for art. And so the idea was whatever cult found this poor man back in early times and smashed this pumpkin over his head, said some crazy witchcraft, and boom,
Voodoo magic.
And started infecting him. So this was my first kind of run at it. Looks all right, you know, did a couple eyes, it's okay. Then what I decided to do is basically I made the skull head so it's more identifiable. It's a little bit more iconic because everybody knows what a skull is. And I actually was trying to figure out how to work the pumpkin seed sort of tentacles that you see at the end of it, at the finalized one. And so I started using fiber mesh and just making like tufts of hair coming out of his mouth, thickening it, and then meshing it and making pumpkin seeds kind of appear on it with nano mesh.
And then is that the toothbrush in the back, stuff in the back?
Exactly, that's a toothbrush, is trying to get a general feel for how the veins and all the stems would work.
So this is your normal workflow. You use your ZBrush actually to block out and figure out the character, almost like a concept. You're using it as a concept too.
Exactly, it's for me it's the funnest thing. Like, you know, I'll draw something like in 2D and kind of get a general rough, but once you learn ZBrush, and I mean, maybe this doesn't happen for everybody, but for me, I was all about 2D at first, and I was like rendering it and making it beautiful and stuff. But once I learned ZBrush, it became like a stepping stone to the next level, which became 3D. And then after that, you learn how to 3D print, and then you have a final product or something to show people. And so that's generally how my workflow goes. Is I'll sketch something out super quick. And just start roughing it out in 3D. Sometimes that takes a lot longer, but it gives you enough time, I find, if you're doing your own personal work, it gives you enough time to think about what the character, how it lives, the story behind it. And that's very important if you're doing your own IP or trying to push it into things. So this was the second one. Got more of a body. I was trying to think of some. He started getting more Cthulhu-y. So I started making the wings, but making like creepy leaves. That's when the pumpkin tentacles, I finally just made tubes and remeshed it, and using nanomesh, I freaking populated everything with these individual seeds.
Now they use these touch screens to tabletized essentially. So
this is me trying, just blocking out poses, trying to figure out what he does.
That's cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, right now I'm just showing it.
You're converting somebody. I'm okay with this.
So let me actually start so that it's not getting in the
These
way.
guys make a lot of money. Crazy amounts. Look at them rolling in the dough.
The hair shows it all.
The hair shows, yeah.
The more hair you have, the more money you're making.
Yeah. Time for a shave then, my friend.
Yeah. So I started coming up with the idea. He's infected now, but he's also like a spirit. This is where he started becoming like more spiritual and like a god of Halloween. And so from right here, I started adding pumpkins that start pulling from it and making it looks very. Working on awesome IP Court of the Dead. I started feeling that it was getting a little too into it, which isn't a bad thing, but I needed to start getting away from it. So I actually I made this next one, like this is where, these all look crazy, I know, but this is how it starts. Was I had the head down, I didn't have what the rest of the body was because I wanted to make a statue of this, I decided. So I kind of brought this around to support it, and also his cape kind of came behind it. And this is where I started thinking of like Otomo and like Akira. Like, it's just like, you know, it's like when he sticks his arm out, it's like the weird veining things that Tetsuo had is the same thing he's gonna have, just to make it extra cool. So I disconnected the scythe and just made it floating for now. These are all like rough sketches, obviously. So then from there, I started doing this, which, okay, I started adding people, I started figuring out what he is. Now he has feet, kind of like just putting in roughs like this. I actually made a hat, a couple hats that you'll see in the final. And then finally from that, it went to this one. Bam! And it's just his helmet. So it turns into this guy. And so I turned him sideways specifically because, let me get rid of all of this. I turned him sideways because I thought, in terms of like, since I work at Sideshow, like statues that are very dynamic, they take up a ton of space. And for me personally, I don't have a ton of space in my house. So what I did is I turned him sideways specifically so when he leans up against the wall, that's pretty much how far he's coming off. So it's not that far off the wall. It's not super dynamic. And instead of using the cape to hold him up, I actually just made this tree trunk that basically goes all the way up. It glues into his feet so it stays supported there. Keys, another piece, comes up, and this is all one piece right here.
Yeah, we made our way around.
Just like this, so you can see, just like this right here. And then from there, I went up into this main large piece because I didn't want it to be too heavy. At least with pieces, because I'm the one paying for all this. So I actually started gluing it all these pieces together, and I started just figuring out how the veining works. And this is actually the top of the piece right there, the top of the tree. So since there's not a whole lot, no one's really gonna see the back. Oh, that's not. Anyways, it's not as detailed as the front. So each one of these has its own. He has his own hat, you know. So there's a bunch of different pieces I wanted to use. So let me just get these all taken off. There. So he has a hood version that I keyed in and everything. He's got a crown, which is boom. Oh, I got moved too. Oh, now I'm fighting all the pieces again, sorry. There we go. So he's got the crown, and then he's got, finally, the witch's hat. There you go. So, and that's simply just, like with this, all it is just making a cylinder, bringing it down, masking the edge, you know, just like that. And then just going and extracting. I have a custom UI, so the extract tool just pops it up just a little bit from there. Just make an insert brush for all the stitches, and I got it.
Do you use the same key way for your entire model, your own designs? Anything special about it? Maybe assembling, look, maybe? Or
the keys, no. That, truthfully, working at Sideshow, I've learned what keys work and what keys don't. And the one on here, these guys work fine. But since this is a pivotal spot, this is an old version, when you add this to let me see it, to the base, when you add this to the base, This might take a sec. So you connect that to the base. It's a circle, basically. So with all of this stuff hanging above him, this starts tilting. So you actually need to make for a key for that specifically, like where it's not just gravity holding onto it, pushing it down. Make a key that's squared, please. Otherwise, you have to basically drill a hole or take a screw and just pin it through here, from here through here. So this is the way you work on your own personal projects, and truthfully, if you enjoy what you're doing, do it this way. But it'll take time, unless you've got it in your head. But there's another one I did for Court of the Dead, and it's actually over at our booth, and it's a Riaz. So we're going to show you how Riaz went. This is what happens when you actually have concept art, and it runs very smoothly with an art director and everything. So this was the concept art I got for Riaz, for Court of the Dead. Our court critters, and this is the concept art. Fairly simple. We have a ball of yarn that's shaped like a skull. Undead cat Riaz, who's a Zyle's pet, and showing you here. Let's start with the first iteration, which is very basic. This was the idea. It was a sphinx. She's very proud. She's just very proud. So what happened is, okay, we didn't like that. We needed to break it in half right here to key it. Made it a little bit more detailed because they were digging what's happening down here. And just sort of detail a little bit more. Start like ideation, figuring out what kind of armor's on her back, along with her collar. Then that went to Ricky Lovas. He actually art directed me to make it more like Ivan's drawing, did the concept art. Made the head a little bit bigger, made the eyes bigger, a little bit cutesier. You want to say that?
Big eyes.
Big eyes, cutesy. So then from there, basically went to this one where our chief creative officer, Tom Gilliland, he said he wanted it, instead of so straight, he wanted it kind of like curved a little bit more creepier, so I turned it that way and basically just went in and detailed it even more. You know, I mean, a lot of this detail is not any crazy alphas. It's just taking, you know, you go to change your alphas here, you go to layers, and just from here, just record and start mixing the textures together. Do a layer, make a texture like pores. Then do a layer after that and get like this right here.
I'll be back in a second.
Okay, yeah. And just do that, and then from there you'll be able to mix textures and just make new textures from it. So to get like this pitting, what I did is I basically sculpted out the body, duplicated it, and shrank it down, and sculpted through the outside one, so you get this underlying structure underneath it. It's super simple. There's no rocket science. With these, it's simply, you can see I masked it, hit it with pores, and then just let it be. And since I knew this was going to be printed very, like, you know, she's about this big, I knew the amount of resolution needed at the time for that specific area on the back of the neck right here. It didn't need to be like insanely crisp. It just needed to get the paint and let the paint go into the holes so it'll really represent what that is. So
Yeah, because if it's going to be 10 feet tall, now it has
exactly. If it's 10 feet tall,
friggin' dots and
you're making cracks in the rust on top of the metal. You know, like on the back.
I do 4K stuff, and it's like, to YouTube, who gives a crap? Like, just drop it on. But if it's
exactly
going on the screen, man, they got a mole on the side. That mole's got to go.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is working in statues right now. Obviously, we're not impressive, that's a terrible word, but we're stuck with the size and resolution of the piece, you know?
Right.
And so, just like in someone's pretty crazy. Just like movies, you know, that's where it's as close as you can get to the character. That's how high resolution the maps are going to be that you make out.
So that's building out a 3D model, or is it vector? I mean, is it? So, I mean, it's nerves or something.
I don't know what this is. I think it's polygon based.
Okay.
So from there, I just pretty much detailed her a little bit more. As you can see here, there we go. Super heavy. Get it back in. So you can see how it went from this to this to this, boom, boom, boom.
It's like each layer you put on became more detailed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To finally where the finished piece was this. You know, painted everything.
Looks awesome.
Thank you so
I
much.
was gonna say,
That's
man.
really cool.
So Matt, there's a question online.
Huh?
They're saying the base model you usually start with a sphere and a dynamite. T-sphere, T-sketch.
It's just straight up a sphere and me just messing around
That's
with
really
it,
smart to do.
and
I mean, it's
that's
like-
it. There's no
I have a guy
there's
who's
no
an
base,
artist.
no
He won't
nothing.
touch.
So just basic spheres.
Really?
That's it. That's what it looks like. And like I said, she's over at the Court of the Dead.
Well, it's almost, there's some people, it's kind of like, it's like two different religions, you know?
So
Yeah. It's
here's some of the other stuff I did at Sideshow as well. That you can see over at the booth. Actually, I don't think Nightmare Batman is on there, but you know, starting out there as 2D, I slowly worked into 3D. So I started off doing
Hey, everybody sucks. Move on.
the Batman base. Raptor Zaddy sculpted this, so I did this. I then moved to this base. I did a base for the base that the amazing Mark Newman sculpted for
It's kind
California.
of funny, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing
And then from there,
engineering software.
I
I'm
got
like, oh,
this.
it's
I
kind
did a
of
mask
like
base,
exactly the
mask
same thing,
base,
only you're
a
making
base
skeletons
to finally,
instead of machine parts.
after the pumpkin guy, I was able to sculpt her.
I do
And from there,
software engineering, embedded stuff.
Yeah.
And I go, man,
Much
they
more.
basically pay me to go on
So
off.
let me try to zoom in here really quick.
But
So you
on
can
off
see
in slightly different ways
In
though.
simple
what I did.
ways, or
Yeah,
with
like
a
I said,
Bluetooth
it's
interface
none
to
of this
it
is
there,
rocket science.
With a,
This was a simple.
with a certain kind of
This is an older. This isn't the final
they have the
because
stuff that picks up the
what I did is I'll show you right here on this one. Basically, did a
Yeah.
rope brush on a
tune it and stuff.
See,
Basically, it's on us. That's
you know,
helpful with it.
you can see right there. You can see it
Oh, that's
peeking
cool.
in. Basically, I just sculpted a rough skull, got a rope brush, and literally, this
A
might be
rope brush?
putting too much behind it. Yeah, but and I just did this,
Texture.
and I made it, and that, and then just to kind of break it up, I did a couple more on top of that. Z remeshed it, did the details, and that was it.
Freaking amazing. I love how there's a rope brush. You already looked at these?
What?
I love how there's a rope brush.
Oh yeah. Oh no, not like you have to. You make it. You can make your own.
That was with the texture. You make a rope and then you're layering it.
Basically, you twist two cylinders together, and then it's like,
You're literally braiding on here.
yeah, you're braiding exactly, and then you can actually make it where you use the brush and just drag it out all over it, and so then you can just make a rope brush chain. That's how you make
Fascinating.
like on a like the xenomorph, like you know, like alien. Like you could literally make like sort of a spinal column, one piece,
Yes.
and then just drag it around and make it smaller as it goes. So all of a sudden you have a full tail. You know? Yeah. It's
I'm excited.
ZBrush is awesome.
Oh my gosh.
What kind of computer do you have that's running this?
What kind of computer is this?
Yeah, like a
You don't really need to have high-end computer to
All
run
of this
rendering.
really is just,
core,
you can see right
60
here.
gigs of RAM.
Yes, that's
You can actually see
that's
a
enough.
little bit of this before I got done with it, but a lot of it
I mean,
is
it's
just
the processor.
the alphas I used, just Alpha 40 right here. Just hit
Yeah,
it.
some programs are video card intensive, some are CPU.
Right.
So,
This is all CPU
you know,
and RAM.
So I'm building me some new computers.
Exactly. Nice talking to you.
And also, I'm not expert with the software, but what I do know
this is actually really heavy, so it's gonna be tough. But anyways, go like this, spray, hit it, you get those pores, right?
so when they have everything right
Down here,
go into the high
all of this detail is literally this spray brush with this and me just going out from it like
I think they
This is too heavy, but basically going like this with this subtle texture here is just the opposite, like this. I just spin
Smoothing
it,
it out.
you know. And so then from there, you would have your layers on.
Oh,
And you could let me do it. Right, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, hopefully this doesn't crash. ZBrush. This is too heavy. I'll just do it on the other guy.
What did you start with?
What's up?
What did you start with?
So,
Sorry, my throat.
yeah.
What did you start with?
What I start with? Just a sphere. And so then from there, you know, you just get a lot of reference and start pulling from it and sculpting on it. It's nothing super crazy. Like these guys, I don't know if I have history still on them, but you can see it's literally just it's just tubes. Like this whole thing was a sphere.
Literally doing like pottery.
Yeah, exactly. You get the base shapes, and that's the key. Is you do base shapes, you get those locked in, then you just build on top of that till eventually you're doing skin texture, folds, and pores. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna do here. Is I have a rough of him based on my drawing I did, and so from here I'm not gonna really get too much into the hard surface because that's gonna I'm not the best at it. It's gonna take longer. So.
Well, it's also finer details.
So I'm just gonna really go in here and let me bring this down, bring it over to my reference so I can look over at it. And
You got room for one more question online?
Thank
yeah,
you.
of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Alright,
Thank
so question online is amazing pizzas. What do you need in order to work the sideshow?
To work at Sideshow?
Yeah. What's the job requirements?
The job requirements: be awesome, be cool. That's number one overall at every company. The next is, I don't know, what I like. I've heard it. It's basically like T knowledge, where you have a general knowledge of a couple things, but you have a deep T knowledge of one thing. So if it's like for me, it was form in 2D, which is like like I'm saying, it's like this drawing here. This is where I came in. Like, dude, we can use you, especially for this Court of the Dead thing. It's a lot of creepy, a lot of detail. It's perfect for it. But then from there, you should try out ZBrush, and like you said, because at Sideshow we're a statue company, and we wanted to do, you want to do statues. So 3D will make you more not important, but more available for higher positions and all that stuff. So it's basically 2D and 3D and be cool. I'll just summarize it like that. So
That makes me qualified for none of that.
oh come on, man, you're fine. Just come over here. Thank you so much. Just stop by the booth, and we're all going to talk. So with this guy, the Elephant. Get it? Elephant? Say elephant? Say. All right. So I'm basically just gonna go in. I have the roughs done. I'm gonna go in, smooth out this eyebrow. I have the eyes basically where they want to be. They are very beady. So what I'm gonna do is go in here, just basically get just do a couple eye backs. Sorry, I'm not as fast because I'm not used to doing this on a keyboard. Basically, I wonder if I could do it over here. Let me see. Okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the book?
I know, but I've been wanting to learn it.
Perfect. I mean, I think we're giving out like a 45.
So anyways,
30 or 45.
yep, right now just waiting for this thing to save. I'm actually going to delete the other tools because that's not helping this computer save. 1 second, guys. Boom. See you later, Riaz. You're already made. Boom. That should cut down on our save time. So, I actually just want to see something. So basically, just gonna kind of lay in where this eye's gonna be. Not doing eyelid, just using, this is just Damien standard, obviously. But for me, it's always critical to get, you know, in 2D and 3Ds, to get the eye, especially the upper and lower lid, you know, because you can go like this, it kind of go like this, and it gives it a whole other sort of either menacing, surprised look. But this is one thing I actually spend a lot of time trying to get right, especially with your own character, because you want to make sure, and any character, you want to make sure it has the correct emotion coming from it. So something like that, you know. So from here, obviously this isn't an elephant. It's not based on an elephant skull, more humanoid. So I'm just gonna say this is like an orbit.
Hey Matt, we have a question from the audience.
Yeah, what's up, man?
So I don't know like anything about ZBrush really. But I had a question. Do like drawing skills apply to ZBrush?
100%. That I came from this. Like this, the guy I'm sculpting, I drew him right there.
Yeah.
And so, because it's the same thing. It's basically taking a canvas and adding dark and light. So once you understand, you know, you push in, you make it darker. That's pushing in. It's sculpting in. You know, so like it's the same. It's the same thing. It's all just black and white. It's
yeah, I've been wanting to learn it. It's really cool.
It's a fantastic. It's
Thank you.
a great thing. Yeah, because you can also take this and like, you know, draw and say sculpt it. You could render it out and then paint over it in Photoshop like super quickly and just make it awesome. There's so many. You could lay out a scene like, you know, if you don't want to draw, you could fix the perspective in here and make it look far away and just render it and then just draw over it. So it's fantastic. Yeah, man. So basically from here, I'm gonna start. All of the basics are really laid in, so I'm just gonna kind of start laying in like where I want the details to start going. And he has a pretty deep furrowed brow. This is kind of. Since he's the Elephant, I made it where, if you can't see, but he has like candy canes, you know, he's from Molen, so it's very just weird. And since he can't choose what to buy, since everything's on sale, his trunk tore to make 2 extra appendages to start grabbing even more and putting it on. Like right now he's got a, you know, a satellite dish for an ear. He's riding a moped, you know. So I wanted to also put him in a deity pose. That's why it's very deity-like. So from here, I'm just gonna start detailing a little bit more. I also, when I want to make bigger, like deeper carvings, especially when I'm doing faces, for some reason, I like using just Damien standard. Like, I'll make it really large, like say I want this part of the cranium to, this ridge to kind of go back for some reason. Like, I'll just hit like this, you know? Just kind of bring it back like that. Or like if I wanted to indent this a little bit more, just lightly tap it, you know? And then just go like this, and it looks like it's underneath skin, you know? So for these bigger shapes, that's what I did for all of this. It's just, you know, just going like this, bringing it down, and hitting it. And so from here, you start getting those secondary forms.
Yes. Yeah, we're streaming as we speak. Oh, yeah, streaming. Yeah, we're streaming. My internet is on my
funny, I just actually downloaded the demo to try it out.
Just from here on, it's just me kind of deciding what details I want to keep, what I don't.
We're giving out a demo version for experience for 30 more days.
Oh, really?
As well, I'm actually turn this up because I'm not really doing that much like large detailing. This is fairly small. I wonder, I can show you quickly like how this works. I do not have my stuff. So basically, it looks like this. It's just the history of this. I wanted to show you that it was like, it started from a sphere and basically a tube, two tubes that I just went like this. But it didn't save history. It's on now.
And
So from here, it's just having a deep knowledge of human anatomy. This will help you a lot. So practice, everybody. Yeah.
were you willing to answer one more question online?
Yeah. Just keep.
All right. So Matthew, what perspective settings at ZBrush do you use, knowing that you need to print the piece? Some of my models get a little bit morphed once they are printed.
The perspective. I actually, right now, I'm using completely just orthographic. Like that's in perspective now. So I'm using orthographic, and when it comes to like, when you're asking like, what does he mean by morph? Like, is he talking about like he sculpts it wrong because the perspective is on, and it's like messing with the sculpture like this?
It's a 3D printing, right?
Or is like 3D printing like it's just kind of, it's not supported, and it just like falls over and morphs? If you could clarify.
Well, he's watching the stream, so he's able to know.
Yeah.
Have fun.
So let's get this eyelid. Generate this. Bring that down into here. And on most.
Think you can answer that question?
I can answer it, but you don't.
He did. He's like, he changed it to the right perspective.
Yeah, I just use orthographic when I'm sculpting, and then like
For printing.
Yeah,
I pretty much do the same thing. I stay in orthographic as well.
From here I'm just gonna fill in this just like any other human eye. Just build this out. And then I'm just gonna hit this a little bit just so it reminds me that there's this sort of detail that I want to come back to. It's hard to see, but it's there. So then from here, like, it's funny, I had like the old 24, so the slider is on the back end, so I keep reaching for on the other side of this thing. Instead I'm using the keyboard. So from here I know there's like, it's gonna kind of come out here. I wanted to have some bags under his eyes. Just want to break that up a little bit. So, yeah, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to.
Yeah, this one's from Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Matt, what are some of your favorite ZBrush jobs you've done?
My favorite ZBrush jobs? Probably, obviously that Riaz one. The God of Halloween. I have a lot of IPs that I create, and so they're all basically cons is like my deadline for IP, like so I can show it. So there's a lot of stuff you haven't seen. It's like an iceberg, where we all have a graveyard of ideas, but we finally finish a few. But it's the God of Halloween, Riaz, some new stuff going on in Sideshow, and I would say everything I do I like, but those are like the top three that I'm like, you know what? Those are my favorite.
Right.
And what's more to come.
Alright, this one is from YouTube. First of all, they appreciate your art.
Thank
and
you.
then her question is, for someone trying to become a character artist,
Yes.
what should I focus on other than human animal anatomy? Just scoping whatever comes to mind, or is there some anything particular that you would like to recommend?
As a character artist, for me, it's 70% of it is based on just anatomy, armor placement, anything you can think of as a character artist. But there should be at least 30% of a story that might never be told, but at least it's in there. So in case like you wanted to move further, like say you develop your own IP, make sure then you could take that story, like say there's some runes or something on it that's like scratched into this guy, like those runes you can then bring in and say to make more of a story out of it if it takes off or it's something you want to pursue. So like 70% anatomy, general design, just make your library bigger than that, and the other 3% is storytelling, or come at it with storytelling. I hope that answers the question. So, like I can show you with this guy, I specifically wanted the pants to look old, like they're like made of burlap, so he seems like much older. So this could be during the pagan times. That's what I really wanted. There's a specific IP that I want it to be during that era. So the cape is all I want it to look like leather, like roughly made. On the hat, if you go back and look, there's actually runes kind of carved into it, just so I can bring that in. There's actually some on his or her back as well. So that's where the storytelling comes from. That's actually some of the best, and that's where you'll get the hardest hitting design work will come from just thinking about it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just one of those things. Like if I bring up this again, like, okay, this guy's cool. What can I do? I can make him have bulging eyes with some weird squiggly stuff inside of it. So maybe he's watching something that like corrupted his eyesight, you know? This guy, I just started doing this, and basically from there I was like, oh man, it's awesome. So made this, and I started, all right, these are leaves, maybe these are trinkets, and just from there, like adding that, thinking about the story behind your design will fuel the more you design it. And so it's the same with like this guy. Like at the starting it was just, there was a weird black and white photo where he was turned, and I saw it as a guy leaning. So okay, that's a church. He has now since he's a church guy, he's gonna have a hollow in his chest. And
there's a follow
more Atomo stuff. So boom, wiring. Then I started sketching on there, and it started looking like the waves were coming from a central point because I messed up. But instead of throwing this away, I took the idea and I made like he can magnetize something. So this in the background is actually like a giant floating like oil tanker that he's bringing down with this magnetism. So then that furthers his story of he might be some guardian. So that's how it works. I don't know if that makes sense. It feeds into it, and eventually it'll spin its own IP from your design.
This stuff is cool too. It's like ZBrush.
Thanks, man.
So, Matt, when you're working for 3D prints, do you have to do hair? And if so, what any techniques that you have for doing hair?
Oh God, pray. A lot of it is kind of the same thing I do here. When it comes to technical, like super technical, I'm not super insightful for that. I will definitely sculpt it like this, make it look like hair, and then go over it and finally take like Damien standard, run through it, and maybe hit some high points, you know, to kind of bring it out, and then take toothbrush and bring it down to kind of get like those stray ones to make it look more natural.
And then there's a question out there, I think, about the perspective question. I think they're looking at the question. I think you're asking about the resolution maybe of the printer. You're saying that you're doing prints and they're coming off morphed. That's probably the printer. I'm answering the person.
Oh yeah.
It's probably the printer. But if you're talking about as far as getting resolution out of ZBrush, you would use something like Decimation Master, so it keeps all the high fidelity detail you can sculpt, but knocks down the polygon counts by millions.
Yep.
But it looks exactly the same. I'm not sure if that's the question you're asking, the person online asking on YouTube.
Then you go back there and you get some of that Sculptris Pro, then boom.
But that saved my life with Prince.
Dude, it's for me too, man. That thing that's a lifesaver. That's why it's right there. So, back to it, man. So
We
truthfully,
have 12 minutes left. So just so you know,
Really?
12 minutes.
that's it?
Yeah. Oh, it goes by faster than you think.
Oh my god, guys. Alright, well, alright, I'm just gonna power detail some of this stuff then. Just knowing the way it works. Usually, eyebrow, like, the older it gets, like, it goes like this. It comes out, goes over, around, like this. And basically, if you break that up, you can start getting general things. I'm gonna show you just kind of quick texturing. So let me just run through this real quick. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger because I want to get some deeper furrows. So, just so it seems. So, say you're loving this. These eyebrows are the best thing you've ever sculpted to date. These are going to be 3D printed right there. That's your eyebrows going for it. So, one thing that blew my mind, and it was just like randomly said by Dominic Queck a long time ago. It was a question he was asked, and basically they're like, how is there anything that you don't see more of? And it was basically making gravity, adding gravity to the brush you're using, and that blew my mind. Never used it, and so thank you, Dom. So what I would do is basically go here, EST, standard stroke, go up here to brush, go to depth. So right here, there's gravity strength. So depending on where you're at, like on the screen, gravity is going to be going down this way. So if you hit, say, this is the wrinkles you like, if you want to pop this out more, turn that strength on. The higher the number, the more gravity will pull it down, and eventually it gets to the point where it looks ridiculous. But 20, 30s are pretty good. And just go in here, and let me control Z these guys. Make it a little bit bigger, and just kind of, you know, you hit it just like this.
But using a pen, it's so pressure sensitive. So
see, from here you can naturally get, it'll start sagging more and more. See that?
he's doing right now, he's doing more of a lighter stroke.
If you can, from here you would slowly start building up more and more detail based on this. And so from here, basically, so you let your Damien standard do most of the detail, like where you want the detail to go. You would come in here and just hit it with that standard with some of the gravity on. And then if you want to go even deeper, you could go back in with the Damien, turn the intensity up and like really, you know what I'm saying? Like if this is a big furrow right here, you would get in and just dig that in. See that?
Hire professional artists to make videos. And then there's ZBrush, a lot of other programs as well.
Dig it in. Sorry, it's kind
Okay, yeah, so this is the ZBrush
Also
Live
from here,
I was talking about, like what we're doing
I would love to know what makes this. Every once in a while, you get that offshoot. This is what I'm going to do, like when I get home. Basically, is I'm going to go in here and detail the whole thing, just like this. You know, just take it like this. Basically, start just figuring out where in the trunk you got to kind of think, just like your hand, like where the folds are. Just try to imagine that on a, you know, a trunk. So you know there's going to be a lot of bending this way and a lot of bending this way. So eventually you just go like this, take this, it's the same thing. Once you understand kind of what you're trying to do, what you're going for, it's fairly easy. I'm rushing because I'm rusty. That's all the time I have for new rings. So could you just go so you can see you just go back and forth like this, knock off some of those dots. Say from here, I'm gonna turn up the geometry a little bit, subdivide it, turn on layers, make a new layer. VST for standard. That's the one I always use whenever I'm texturing. I don't know why. Color or spray, not color spray. Hit that with some alpha, and then just slowly just spin it. At least that's what I do. So it looks crazy now. Just give me a second. If you take it and then turn it down a little bit, it'll slowly, see you'll have a base to then work from right there. And then the thing is, it looks weird because there's nothing left. You can turn the record back on. And truthfully, let's go like this. Go in here. Turn this down. Bake it. And basically you take the same thing, hit this with alpha, make a new layer, and just start hitting it with some pores, you know. And eventually what happens is you do that more and more, you can actually make some clumps. You just keep baking it and it'll look great. But since this, I don't have the forms underneath it, it's not the greatest looking thing. So, like I said at the beginning of this, is you need to lock those forms in before you actually really start getting into it. But you can see, it's that easy. It's just knowledge of form, a body, and but also a little bit of storytelling as well. So, man.
The sale and you have a license.
So I use VST a little bit. Build up this eyebrow ridge.
So, but you're going to get like 15%. You'll be able to do great.
I'm going to actually kind of pop this guy off, just so
we limited that and we're not a volume.
a little more detail, a little bit more weight to this. I could use the standard with the gravity on it, but
we can strip a lot of them.
Oh wow, nice.
Those are your options.
Alright, I'll get it.
Going in then, go with it.
This.
This might be a little exciting. Somebody was coming saying that you have gray hair.
Thank you. Hopefully it stays with me for a little bit longer. It doesn't abandon ship.
And that creature is really cool.
Thank you so much. Hopefully this will be ready for Monster Palooza. So my plan is to detail him just like he is here. Print him out, but print him out where he's like cut into a bunch of blocks, so I can print like 20 of them and make him like this big, get him painted and stick him up at my Monster Palooza booth next year. So there'll be a lot more sculpts. Hopefully this helps, guys. Hopefully you understand. So So what I'm doing, like I said, is just putting in some rough Damien standard, like where the detail could go, where it should go with the skin. Getting
You only got a couple of minutes left.
and knowing here, like on a human, basically there's a nose, like you got your fold going down, but it's pretty much right here. From here, you see his tongue sticking out. It's kind of a double chin. And it's still rough right there, but basically this would sink in. Since this is a big, heavy mass, gross neck, it would kind of come out like that. Just like this. Like I need to finesse all of these forms a little bit more to actually make them look more natural. Because like this, the way this is popping out, this is more of a tumor. So I need to finesse it a little bit more. Hopefully, you guys, this has helped and just gave you more of an idea in terms of how design and 2D can interlock together, and you can use ZBrush to just further that. Find a person with a 3D printer, get a printer, and make your own stuff. That is the key, and that is the most awesome thing you can do. Develop your own idea.
So yeah,
Develop it. It's awesome. It's fun.
Have a great time. Let me know if you need
Sell it.
Welcome to the.
So I was Matt Molen. This came up so quick that this wrapped up so quickly that that's what I got.
Really like